All right, I'd like to call this meeting to order. If everyone would stand and join me in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, council has their agenda in front of them. Are there any changes, or is there a motion that we approve the agenda?
I'll make a motion that we approve the agenda.
I'll second it.
All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Are there any announcements this evening?
Just a quick reminder to make sure that you use your microphone when you're speaking, and it will be helpful to identify yourself when you're making motions. Our clerk is in her office next door. It will just help for the record keeping, so please make sure you remember to do that whenever you speak.
Thank you.
All right. For public comment tonight, we have one signed up for in-person, and then town clerk will read the ones that were submitted by email. So first we have Anthony Hill. So if you'll step to the microphone and introduce yourself for the minutes. Introduce yourself for the minutes.
Can I take this off? Good afternoon. Randy, Roger, Brian, Shay. My name's Anthony Hill. I'm a resident of Mills River. I live at 295 Banner Farm Road. And I retired as a trooper from the North Carolina Highway Patrol 5 years ago. And the reason I bring that up is there's some points I want to bring out that I can attest to professionally and personally as a resident. I come tonight before y'all concerning the proposed light industrial building going up on the old Tommy Lee Hefner property on Schoolhouse Road, just south or east of Banner Farm Road. And none of you people sitting here tonight was on the town council when that was rezoned 12, 15 years ago. Roger was the mayor. And at the time, we were supportive of this, even me as a resident, because the farmer wanted to build a building to package produce and fruit, and he took the 15 to 20 acres behind his property, which is adjacent to mine also, and he farmed that for years. And that's fine. I mean, it was just, it went along with the idea of the founding fathers in 2003. Let's keep Mills River rural. Let's not fill our fields up with a bunch of commercial development. And we've heard that since 2003. And then they sold to Bold Rock, and that's fine. Bold Rock is Bold Rock until Friday and Saturday nights come. And then the music starts, but we're not here to discuss that. And well, that's for a later time. But what I'm here about is I can't stop this proposed 175,000 square foot metal building going up 30 feet off my property line with 20 plus loading docks and the added light pollution I'm already getting from Flavor First now. But the town council and your legal staff, you got two choices. You can rezone it, or you can put a moratorium on new construction in these light industrial areas of this community, this town, until DOT is held accountable for upgrades to our current roads that are way behind in handling the traffic that we have now to accommodate. The daily users of Banner Farm Road, Schoolhouse Road, and Latson Road were already feeling the pinch and the effects of what's been added, Norafin, Bold Rock, Lakeside Produce, and I just didn't even realize until I drove by the new Lowe's warehouse coming in. It just poofed me. I didn't think about it. Everybody's familiar with the four-way stop sign at Banner Farm Schoolhouse Road. Busy intersection when I worked there 5 years ago. Buses, private vehicles taking kids to and from school, and in the mornings and the evening, they just lined up past the intersection on Schoolhouse Road. I would sit out there from 7 o'clock till 8:30, just to make sure everybody got to where they needed to be going. And then we have commuters coming from Bavard, Brickyard Way, South Mills River, that community coming to Hendersonville to work. Perfect cut through. And I say this, go back to Nora Finn and Bold Rock. We can't control the way people drive or act. But one thing that we did when, as a member of the Highway Patrol, we tried to educate people in certain areas of where they needed education. So we, the town, and I'll volunteer to help. We go pay a visit to Nora Finn and Bold Rock. We recommend that they post a sign at their exits to turn right, Nora Finn, to go to a controlled access red light and turn right on NC 280, or Bold Rock can turn right and go to Schoolhouse and NC 191 at that controlled intersection. We can ask them to put signs up, or we, the town, could make flyers. And I have to share a short story with you. North Carolina printed out these move over flyers a couple years ago when I was working. They were probably 3 inches by 11 inches. And on the back, it said they were printed 300,000 of them at 5 cents a piece. And I thought, well, I know about the move over law. So what we did is I made a copy of them and doubled them. And me and my coworkers on my shift, we went to I-26 and US 64, and we didn't check license. We just stopped and we handed out these move over flyers. What's this? This is move over law. I'm aware of the law. These people are not. You know, they don't read the paper, you know, TV's they got a life to live. They got to go. So us as a town, and like I say, I'll be willing to help. Let's make a flyer to give to the shipping receiving department to hand to that trucker from wherever he's at and say, hey, dude, go turn right at the parking lot, go to the next red light, you're there. Controlled access, it's a whole lot easier to get in and out. It's one point. Schoolhouse and Banner Farm Road is 18 foot wide with 1 to 2 foot shoulders. The turning radius at the 4-way stop sign, we know how big that is. We're struggling now to watch, Roger can attest to this, the tractors pulling hay, bales of hay rake, baler. Even your average F-350 or F-250 pickup truck is struggling to come through there. Not counting the buses. And the common courtesy in Mills River, anywhere in the community, is when we see a bus coming, we back up 15 to 20 feet from the intersection to let him through. The rumble strips at the 4-way stop sign, we're all familiar with them. You know, you hear thup, 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 thup. It took me about 5 months to get them. And I had to argue with Mark Gibbs from DOT, and he wanted justified. How can we justify this expense of the state? Luckily, we had the accident reports quarterly to justify the number of wrecks that was happening. And he installed the rumble strips, and I went one step further and pushed Mark a little bit and asked for the word stop ahead to be painted. And that was not in the budget. That was not coming in the budget. And I volunteered to even buy the paint. Didn't happen. But the first night they got done, it was the springtime, and I'm laying in bed and I hear thup, 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 thup. My wife said, "You happy?" And I said, "What is that noise?" She said, "That's your rumble strips." And I inconvenienced myself for the safety of everybody's family in this community at the time, because I had an obligation at that intersection. I was really tired of working wrecks there. I mean, it's every day. I mean, we could go to Howard Gap and US 64, but this is our intersection right now. I left Monday I'm in a new job now, helping out for a day or two. And I left going home and almost got hit head on Monday by a tractor trailer who was intent on turning right from Schoolhouse Road onto Banner Farm Road. And here he come, couldn't go in the veterinary clinic. So I went up Schoolhouse Road and come around him. My wife and my kids have been instructed not to travel Banner Farm Road to NC 191. It's too dangerous. We go Presbyterian Church Road and NC 280. Sometimes they don't pay me no mind, but what I'm saying is our roads are full now. Y'all have been here for a long time, all of you, and you see what we're dealing with every day. And this new commercial park that's happening in our rural communities are going against what Roger first stepped on the stone about in 2003 to keep this rural and keep this Mills River. And I understand about progression. I understand about moving forward. And it's okay sometimes to stop the track. Right here, available to you is online. Project level traffic forecast for NCDOT is dated 2017 average annual traffic, daily traffic. And the print date is 10/31/2018. And it depicts NC 191 with all the intersecting roads from NC 280 back down to Leverett Drive. Banner Farm Road is denoted as 35 in red. You go to the log in red, 35 number of vehicles per day in the 100s. So Banner Farm Road in 2017 was carrying 3,500 vehicles a day, an average of 2.3 per minute. We move on down here to Ladson Road. This got me 4,800 vehicles. Now, I don't know when we're coming off of Ladson, if we're counting the 48, how many is going to Schoolhouse, how many is going Ladson towards that community? We don't know. The only number else I could find was dated 2016. Schoolhouse and NC 280 showed 2,100 on that end. Nothing on this end was noted on DOT. And I knew the numbers were high. I done a little research a couple years ago for a project I was working on. And NC 280 and NC 191 is south of NC 191 towards Brevard is 19,300, which is up over 1,000 from when I done my count 2 years ago. But the NC 280, NC 191 intersection prior to any movement of change in direction is 28,000 people, 28,000 cars. I don't want to come across as insulting at all, but my question would be, who are we supporting? The developers of Charlotte or Greenville? Or are we supporting the people that put y'all in place and who has kept me and this young lady in this community? And this young lady here, I watched her grow up. She's still here. Preliminary comprehensive plan. Yeah, I don't keep an ear to the ground a lot on this, but you know, I've heard a lot about keep the rural areas open, keep the light industrial areas out of the rural neighborhoods. From the question and answer forum that we had at the Mills River Community meeting before the prior election, Mr. Snyder made the comment, very open about it, that the town of Mills River is setting pretty well financially. We're not hurt. So my question to me is, what is our rush to fill these rural areas with light industrial businesses? I mean, if it was my choice, if Pete Johnson called and said, hey, what do you want there, Hill? You want a building or you want a neighborhood? I'd have to choose a neighborhood. Is it going to add more traffic to us? Yes, but it's easier to deal with a Kia and a Ford Pinto than it is to deal with a 70-foot tractor trailer that we're having to deal with every day. I say this, when I worked as a trooper, I said this many a times, and many a times I got put on third shift for saying this, but I'm going to challenge you, gentlemen, and you young lady. My saying was to my supervisors, don't sit in your climate controlled office and try to manage this district. Get out in the ditches with the troopers and meet the people of the community we serve. And I say to you, town council members, town mayor, town manager, town planner, and anyone else here who has an impact of what we make as decisions, to go set at an intersection, pick Banner Farm and Schoolhouse Road one morning at 7:30 and just sit there. Go to Jeffries Road in 280. Go and look at what we're dealing with on our side of town Mr. Kimball, you live off of the Jeffries Road side, I think, correct? Over that way? Okay, so your neighborhood, your neighborhood's got a ton of traffic coming up through there too on this count. So let's go look at these things and see what we're dealing with as a resident as it gets busier. So I say to you, rezone the property. Yes, they're going to holler. But so did the people across the street from North End, and it still happened. And I don't like the word or let's get on to DOT, hold them accountable before we continue any further with any construction of light industrial buildings. They're not living there. I mean, a 23 bay, 175,000 square foot industrial park. I don't know what they're going to build. I don't know what they're going to do. I don't know what time of the hours they're going to do. You know, gentlemen, young lady, I just ask you to let's look at this as a whole, not just for my neighborhood, but for all of y'all's neighborhoods, of how it's going to impact us later on. For this young lady, for your young ladies, and your young sons, and your grandkids. I appreciate your time. And I do have one question, and I don't want an answer tonight. One of you can email me. What happened to the three-lane road that was promised through the town and DOT from NC 191 to the four-way stop sign to accommodate North End? Thank you.
Anthony, is it? I appreciate your comments. I've known you longer than I've known me. Now, is that just for the council's, just a little bit of history, is that whenever we gave Pepsi incentives, they got a bunch of tractor trailers and so forth. So we made a requirement, suggestion, whatever, that they not use Butler Bridge Road, that they come out of Pepsi, make a right-hand turn and hit 280, because Butler Bridge Road was already wadded up. So that may be something, if we've got anything that we can do with this new development, is that come out of this development and make a right-hand turn and go towards Schoolhouse Road. Now, going back to your point about Banner Farm Road, now I'll just tell you what I've heard, is that they're supposed to fix that intersection at Banner Farm Road and 191. Is that's on their list. But they actually let it out for bids, and Brian, you may want to correct me, but nobody would bid on it to fix that intersection. So what they done, they said, well, phooey, we'll just wait until we build 191. Is that
That's exactly right.
until, but going back to your point, you're exactly right. You've got Norfolk, you've got school buses, you've got Flavor First, you've got now Lowe's, and that does not include any school traffic. Now, you know where I grew up,
Yes, sir.
is that you would not believe the amount of traffic of, I'm gonna call them school kids, running up and down Schoolhouse Road in front of my old house. Well, is that DOT has got to step up to the plate and deal with this stuff. Is that if they don't, then we're going to have to do it, and we may have to do it anyway. But all these tractor trailers, you've got the Mills River Brewery, with people in and out. Well, that's just going to mess Banner Farm Road up even more. So I appreciate your comments.
There was a farmer told me one time, he said, Hill, you can't tell me who I can sell my land to. And he had a good point, you know, and it's almost just like, man, that just hurts, but we've got to put something in place for all of us. So, thank you.
Thank you. Town Clerk Sue is going to read the public comments that were emailed. So when you're ready.
Okay, the first one comes from Sharon Urbanic. Apologize if I've mispronounced that. She actually just has a question. If you live inside the town limits, but can hear nearby loud, frequent, and at times incessant gunshots that may not be inside town limits, what can be done about it? The next one is from Emily Sawyer. I live directly behind the venue of Mills River / private home of Dr. Van Oostendorp. Parentheses, I am unclear regarding the designation of the property as business or private residence, close paren, at 80 Green Ridge Drive, and have great concern regarding the noise at this property at night, particularly on school nights. I would like to request a 9 p.m. halt to music and noise that can be heard outside of homes on any properties located within a reasonable distance from a residential property, and humbly suggest that this distance be 0.2 miles. I'm about 0.1 miles from their back porch when I'm in my bedroom inside my home. I can hear every word that is said above normal volume speech, every note of the loud music that is played, every car that spins loudly out of the driveway accompanied by yelling and screaming, and must close every window of my house to get any relief. On school nights, we have a big problem. Thank you for considering my concerns, Emily Sawyer. This one is from Eric Klonch. The topic is vehicle break-ins and Mills River neighborhoods targeted. It's addressed to each member of council. Good afternoon. There have been several incidents of neighborhoods being targeted by criminals in recent months. Hollybrook Farms is adjacent to Glen C. Marlowe Elementary. Glens of Aberdeen is another neighborhood that has been targeted. These are simply two neighborhoods that I am aware of. Other nearby communities that have also been targeted include Riverstone, which is off Butler Bridge Road in the Henderson County jurisdiction. And from what I'm told, High Vista has been targeted by these mobile coordinated attacks. On Monday morning, December 7th, between the hours of 12:30 a.m. and 3:30 a.m., Hollybrook Farms had numerous vehicle break-ins. This is the second time in the past 3 or 4 months that our neighborhood has been targeted. I recommend that the town of Mills River organize a task force to include the Henderson County Sheriff's Department, Town of Fletcher Police Department, and Buncombe County Sheriff's Department, and to also include area businesses, fire stations, schools, and other buildings on main corridors. Perhaps high-tech video cameras can be installed to help locate, apprehend, and prosecute these criminals. There are numerous tent city encampments near the South Ridge Shopping Center, parentheses, home of Lowe's, Best Buy, Target, etc., close paren, on Airport Road. Perhaps some of the crime in Mills River is stemming from the issues on Airport Road in Buncombe County. The voices of the town of Mills River City Council need to be heard loud and clear across the county line with the Buncombe County Sheriff's Department, Buncombe County County Manager, Buncombe County Commissioners, and if appropriate, the Asheville Police Department Chief of Police, if Airport Road is their jurisdiction. I fear that if our community tolerates petty crime, such as what I've described, then the more violent crime will soon follow. We must protect our community. We must stand firm. We must have courage. It begins with you. Eric Klonch, 374 Hollybrook Parkway. The next one is from Jim Sawyer. Please ask, it says, please ask town council to address the following question. What is the plan for ensuring safe travel and mitigating noise concerns as commercial development in the areas around Banner Farm Road, Schoolhouse Road, and Highway 191 intensifies? The last one is from Tammy Ross. This letter is to address the town council regarding the discussion of requiring people to hire their own security when renting the baseball field. My name is Tammy Ross, and I serve on the Parks and Recreation Advisory Committee. To give you my own personal background, I have one son who played rec baseball at Jackson Park, kindergarten through 5th grade. No, we did not do travel ball, but witnessed plenty. I strongly believe the council should not require groups renting the field to have their own security. These leagues often are not making a profit, and to scrounge up the extra money to pay for security would mean them just not using our facilities. I've spoken with many parents with many years of going to baseball games, and not one of them has ever heard of a facility requiring them to bring their own security. This community has worked hard to finally have this baseball field ready to use. I do not feel we should place another burden or obstacle in the way, making this field accessible only to those with the funds to spare. Churches, T-ball, rec ball, travel ball, middle school, they spend every bit of money they get on keeping their programs going, paying for traveling, advertising, facility rentals, uniforms, equipment, or the child that can't afford to pay, etc. In baseball, the umpire handles the crazy parent or coach getting out of line. He can and will throw out anyone who is being unseemly, and they have to leave the field and stands. I have seen it done. I know baseball has a bad rap for passionate parents or players or even coaches, but the passion is part of the game. No one wants to ruin it. The park always has the right to ban an organization from returning if they are not good guests. We cannot control every circumstance. Again, the town did not build this beautiful ball field just for the corporate businesses that can afford to shell out money for security and not think twice about it. We want organizations of all diversity, of all ages, 2 to 92, to have the opportunity to play on this field. Side note, no other recreational sport is required to have security, and I have seen some pretty exciting soccer games. In closing, it is my recommendation the council not require organizations to bring their own security when renting the baseball field. Thank you for your time. Tammy Ross. And that would be the last one.
Thank you, Sue. Okay, we are to the recognition of our Mills River Scholars, and these were handed out in the spring. And I believe we have one of our Mills River Scholars with us. I can see here on the screen, Miss Lindsay Livingston. Welcome, Lindsay. Remind us again what you're studying.
Medical assisting.
Medical assistant. All right, anybody have questions for Lindsay or? Anybody?
I just wanted to comment that that's what my daughter, my oldest daughter, studied in school, and she is working for a dermatologist now and loves every minute of it. So you're on a very good track. So congratulations.
Thank you.
Lindsay, I think this is what, the second or third time that you've won this scholarship?
This is the second time.
What?
The second time.
Okay. Congratulations.
Thank you.
All right, thank you for being with us tonight, Lindsay.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Good luck. Okay, to the consent agenda. Is there a motion that we accept the consent agenda as presented?
I'll make a motion that we accept the consent agenda. This is Brian Kimball.
This is Brian Caskey. I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, not opposed.
Just one note, if you're okay with it, on the consent agenda, it says the minutes of November 26th. It's actually November 12th. And
Yeah,
I
was
will
thinking.
just make that correction in the motion.
Thank you. Okay, to the regular agenda, item A is the Parks and Recreation Master Plan presentation by Sarah Burrows with Sage Design.
Thank you, Mayor. We actually have a stand-in for Sarah tonight who had a family situation, so we've got Nicole Whiteside on the line. I'm going to get her queued up in just a minute. Nicole, whenever you're ready, we'll get you on the big screen.
Okay,
I
great.
see her.
So much.
Welcome.
Thank you. I'm Nicole Whiteside. I'm here from Sage Design, and we've been working for the last few months on the Mills River Parks and Recreation Master Plan. And we've had a really enjoyable time working with your community. And what I'm here tonight to show you is all of the different information we've received since the last time anyone has gotten together. I know Sarah had the chance to speak with the Park Advisory Committee a few weeks ago as well to go over this information, and now we're going to share it with you. I'll start on my slides. As for the process, it's pretty much a five-fold process, and we've done the inventory, meaning that we've been to your community and we've looked at what you've gotten there and what you're looking to add, and kind of taken all of that information and categorized that. And we've gone out to the community and gotten some feedback in the form of a survey, as well as the meeting that was hosted a few weeks ago with the Mentimeter survey as well from the community. So now we're in the phase where we're analyzing all of this information, and we're going to process it and see what that gets us, and then return that information to you as we start moving forward, going into actual plans and what will be done next. The next phases after that, again, are prioritizing and then recommending and having implementations for your community with suggestions. We like to always start with the mission of your community, and the advisory committee really helped guide us with this process. And so the mission for your community's Parks and Recreation Department is to provide quality recreational facilities, parks, and programs which are safe, diverse, and enriching to the Mills River community. And the overall vision is to make Mills River a happier, healthier, and greener community through programs and places. The core values that all of you seem to really stand behind and want in your community are health and wellness, conservation and stewardship, safety, and responsibility. And I think we can all agree these are great stepping stones and places to start. So as we dive into the survey, which was started in October and closed in November, we actually had a great turnout. There were 544 responses from the community, which was excellent. We've gotten a lot of responses from both the online survey, and then you also had another 55 responses from the last presentation via Mentimeter over I guess it was done either through Facebook Live or through a meeting through Zoom a few weeks ago as well. So as we start to dive into some of the material that was presented in the survey, the first question was, who am I? And 70% of your responses were residents of the town, or they owned businesses in the town. So this is great. This really is showing a huge percentage of your population has responded to this survey and really care about what happens to the parks and recreation within your community. The next slide says, if you were a resident, how long have you lived in the town of Mills River? And most of your residents have lived in the town of Mills River for quite a long time, which is great to see. That means you have long-term investments within the community, and your residents truly care about what happens within your community. What are the ages of the members in your household? Please indicate the number of people in each age group. And this was really great to see because this was a true demographic match. On the left hand, you see the census data. And then on the right hand, you see the survey distribution data, which our survey distribution data matches pretty closely to the census data, which means that all of the demographics in which you actually surveyed was very close to the census, which really helps your community as you move forward, especially if you're going to go after grants or other sources of funding, that this is a legitimate and valid survey of the community and what they are looking for. How satisfied are you with the overall quality of the existing facilities provided by the Parks and Recreation Department? And this seems to be an astounding number. So 95% of your residents feel that what you offer is good, very good, or excellent. So this is great. Your community backs what you are currently doing, and they feel very good about it. Please rank how important the following types of facilities are to your family. 5 was the most important, 3 was neutral, and 1 being not important at all. So this is a critical piece to look at. And this is probably one of the more telling pieces of information we use as we go on our planning process, especially for growth. The number one thing that your community members are interested in is pathways and trails. And there are open comment sections within this entire survey, and a lot of them mentioned connectivity and the ability to get to the parks and other locations via sidewalks and trails was a really important thing. Beyond that, community parks ranked number 2, river access, which we know is a vital part of your community, was number 3. Playgrounds was number 4, and picnic shelters was number 5. You can see the other items beyond that: open lawn areas, fitness, performance and festival spaces, aquatics, and athletic fields. Number 4, number 3, number 2, number 1, you can see all of the answers up there, but they're just not as important for us to look at if we're looking at what to kind of move forward with. But they are important to note and to know what people value and what people do not value within your community. So then, in addition to that question, there is the other section where people could put their own open comments. And interestingly, inline hockey rinks with a roof was commented on multiple times. It seems that there's interest coming from a group both in Asheville and maybe also Hendersonville that had to do with wanting inline hockey within your area that does not currently exist. And then of course there were comments for greenways, which would be again your trails, regular hockey rinks, so that's meaning an ice hockey rink, additional dog parks to what you have in Mills River Park currently, and then also pickleball courts and shade or covered spaces within your park system. So the next question was, please rank your top 3 priorities for expansion or development. Again, 1 being a top priority, 2 your second and third, or 3 your third. Again, pathways and trails was the top priority. And then aquatics moved up to second in this question. And then third ranked a bunch of different items. Again, it was the inline hockey, hockey rinks, dog parks, bike trails, and then a pump track or a splash pad. Those both ranked identically within the survey results. So one of the questions we were interested in knowing, especially in regard to Mills River Park, was, do you currently use the Mills River or French Broad River for recreation? And if you do, please let us know which you use. So and people definitely do use it. Greenway trails, hiking, running, and walking seem to be the priorities of your residents along that corridor. Would you support the Mills River Parks and Recreation Department offering recreational programs? And this was astounding. You had huge amounts of support. As you can see, it was under 5% for no and above 90% for yes, which is great because that means you definitely have support. Please rank how important the following programs would be to you or your family. Community events were mentioned over and over again. And I know one of the unique things is during COVID, we obviously haven't been able to have these massive community events that we normally would. But once it is available to do that again, I think your community definitely is looking for community events. The second was fitness, wellness, and adventure programs. And this will be something for your department to consider adding to what they already offer, because that is definitely a desired item. Third was the youth sports and programs for the community members. Fourth was senior programs. And then fifth, adult sports and programs. And then sixth was environmental education programs. Please tell us what your top 3 priorities would be for programs offered by the Mills River Parks and Recreation Department. So the top priorities ended up being youth sports, community events, fitness and wellness programs, senior programs, and adult sports. The majority of your community does ride a bicycle, and this is important to think about all of those connections, as I was talking about earlier. To get from point A to point B, a lot of people would like to be able to ride bicycles within the community to do that. I might ride a bicycle more if there were more off-street trails available. And a lot of this comes down to safety, and you can see that down towards the bottom where we've marked the 12%, that people would be willing to do this if there were a safer route to be able to bicycle to different places and locations. So in order to make park and program improvements, what measure would you support for funding? And this is critical within a community to know where your residents stand, because at some point somebody has to be able to say, okay, we will pay for this with X, Y, or Z. So as you can see, the bond referendum is definitely supported, and about 50.11% of your population supported that, and only 11.46% did not support this. And it is important to note that you can have a bond referendum without a tax increase. So that is something to really consider as you move forward with this process. When you look at the tax increase line, you can see that the support is a little diversified, and you're almost broken up into 3 groups at that point, almost evenly. So there's 33.5% supporting, 37.32% do not support it, and then 29.14% in the middle. So you've really got almost a third, and a third in terms of whether or not you do a tax increase. What was great to see was that the community does support your program fees. 70%, a little more than that, would support program fees within your community. So as you can see, there are numbers that are next to each of these items right now. So program fees would be the number 1 that is definitely supported. Bond referendum would be number 2. Facility fees came in 3rd at about 54% of support. And a tax increase was 4th, and then nothing was 5th. And there were some additional comments in that other category, and we can go into those further if we need to later on. This kind of shows how the methods of funding could be supported as well. The first thing that was supported was grants. And grants, as you know, there are different avenues to go down with those grants for Parks and Recreation, whether it's the Parks and Recreation Trust Fund or one of the other grants available. Those are always helpful to go after. You need to do a lot of legwork to get to that point, but you're all on the right track currently to do that, especially if you did want to go, as you have in the past, for a Parks and Recreation Trust Fund grant. Second was program fees. Third, again, was the bond referendum. Fourth was the facility fees, and fifth came to the tax increase.
Nicole,
Yes,
this is Roger. Can you back up to, yes, that slide
yes,
is that, if I'm looking at this correctly, and you made my point on the next slide, why isn't facility fees ranked number 2 instead of bond referendum?
so
Because, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I think, so when Sarah and I talked about this, and when you look at the ranking numbers versus which would be ranked 1, 2, or 3, I think her point in not ranking that in that order was that the bond referendum you could do more with than you could, per se, the facility fees.
Okay, is that, if you would go to the next slide.
Yep,
The next slide tells me grants, program fees, and bond referendum is 3rd. Is that, why isn't this graph the same as the other graph?
as this one.
Yes.
I think the one reason for what she was doing in this was that first and foremost, communities always go after the grants. And that was an important thing that wasn't mentioned in the previous slide. And I think from there, it went into the program fees, the bond referendum, the facility fees, that type of thing. I can clarify with her, but I believe the grants ended up being on the top in terms.
If I could just jump in for a second, I think I can put a little clarity. So Roger, the previous slide was from our written survey, where this slide, the current slide, was from our Mentimeter presentation.
Yes.
So it was just 2 different sessions, so different people responded. So that's why things are just a little bit different. And we'll take both of those slides and kind of put those together for our the final recommendations.
Okay.
But it was 2 separate processes, which is why they're different, because different people responded.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Nicole. Okay. Do we want to move on from this slide, or do we still have additional questions?
You can continue.
Some of the comments on how Parks and Recreation can be improved within Mills River. As you can see, the larger the words were, was the more those comments were repeated. So parks and covered areas and playgrounds and inline hockey and rinks and walking were all big things that were mentioned within the surveys of the community. How often do you use Mills River Park? Most of your responses said that they use the park more than 1 time a week, which is great. Many of them used it just 1 time a week or 1 time a month, and some were a few times per year. But your parks are certainly getting use based upon the responses. When do you use Mills River Park? The majority of your residents either use it midday or evening. And there are still quite a few of them that use it in the morning. How do you get to Mills River Park? Please pick at least one. So the bulk of your response is that most of your residents drive to the park currently. There's only a few opportunities to bike and walk So some of your residents do that, but the majority of them drive. And what is the most used amenity at Mills River Park? And I think this actually is back from what Nicole had just mentioned, that Mentimeter program. And walking trails seem to be the biggest use within the park. What is your favorite activity at Mills River Park? And again, walking trails, dog parks, basketball, river access, fishing, tennis. These were all things that your community members use and enjoy when there. So when asked to select the top 2 activities or facilities that you participate in at Mills River Park, the comments came in that the multi-use trails are most used. And then after that is the playground. And beyond that would be your river access. So for future questions of use, people are looking for, again, that inline hockey rink, aquatics, bike trails, hockey rink, trees or shade. This kind of tracks back to some of the questions we had before of what they would like to see to use in the park in the future. When would you most likely use the future park on Banner Farm Road? So this is switching a little bit. Banner Farm Road, we're looking at the piece of property there currently and what to do with it. And so we're starting to get some input from your residents. And it looks like the majority of them said they would be using this park within the evening hours and before sunset, and then midday, and then also morning. And how would you most likely get to the future park along Banner Farm Road? Again, this is driving. Some would walk and some would bike, which was a little bit greater than the last question in regard to Mills River Park, but still the majority of your residents would be driving. And so when we asked about the 2 activities you would love to see at Banner Farm Road, again, walking trails, hiking trails, biking trails, mountain biking, picnic areas, disc golf, playgrounds, nature centers, community gardens, dog parks, and then aquatics and fitness. So continually walking trails, varieties and hiking trails keep coming up, and that definitely is the biggest request from your residents within the community. If you could add 3 park features to this site, what would they be? You can see within the word cloud here that walking trails, biking trails, all really kind of stick out, as does the mountain biking trails. And knowing the topography and the vegetation on the site, these activities do suit the site more than certain other activities would. So again, I'm just going to review our process. And so next will be our overall needs to prioritize what you are looking for within the community, park program features, draft recommendations. We're hoping to have some plans and all of this available for the Park Advisory Committee next week. And then after their comments, we will come back again at some time in January with some revisions and continue the process from there. I believe that is all I have. If there are any questions.
Does anyone else have questions for Nicole?
I do. So this is Randy. Nicole, you do these surveys for towns and municipalities at your job there with Sage Design, is that right?
That's correct.
Okay, and you do a lot of these surveys like this. So I'm going back to the question number 6, please.
Sure.
How often do you see a community that is 95% satisfied with the facilities that they have in place whenever you do one of these surveys for a town or something?
It is rare. You have a unique situation where you have a really strong community backing of your services that you currently are offering. Most of the time, when we get results for surveys, they are not this positive and energetic about what you've got already. So this is great. This means that your Parks and Recreation Department are doing the right things, and they've started moving in the right direction to add programs and events and spaces that the community really seems to enjoy and utilize.
Thank you.
Brian.
Nicole, this is Brian Caskey. Thank you for pinch hitting tonight. This has really been a very good presentation. I wanted to ask you a couple of things. And first, I guess, as a comment, I was very happy to see that the census data matched up with the results of the survey. I think that's significant. But I wanted to ask you about the number of surveys, the number of responses that we received. Looks like there were 544 plus 55 more that came through the Mentimeter sessions. I think that would represent approximately 10% of the adults who live in Mills River. Would you characterize that as being a significant enough slice to sort of represent to this council that that's the will of the town, that could be used as evidence of what the people of Mills River want to happen with Parks and Recreation?
I would think so. When you look at the slide that I've just put back up there, and if you look at the ages from 18 to 64, that comes to a total of 56.2% of those that were surveyed. And so that's a really good understanding of that age group within your community and what they're after. When you think about it, your respondents that are under the age of 5 and respondents that are between the ages of 5 to 17 may not be as clear as to what they want, or maybe their wants are very different from those of adults. But I think if you're looking strictly for information from the community validated within that 18 to 64 age range, you definitely have it.
Excellent, thank you.
Other questions from council? All right. Thank you for being with us tonight, Nicole.
Thank you so much.
Okay, next on the agenda, ordinance 2020-12 to amend chapter 90 of the Mills River Code Park Rules, the second reading.
Nicole Sweat, would you mind just summarizing what you talked about with the Parks Committee? The only real change that came of this from your last meeting, Council, is I believe, no pepper. I'm going to hand it over to Nicole.
Yes, yeah, as far as the ordinance goes that we read at the last meeting, so as per your request, the only addition was the no pepper. So I think all we need to do to pass the ordinance at this point, Sue, maybe you can go through the procedures on that. And then I know there wanted to be some more discussion about security. So maybe once we pass this ordinance, then we can move on to those discussions. Is that fair?
Sure.
You're on mute, Sue.
I didn't want you to hear me typing minutes, so I muted. In order to pass this ordinance, basically we need a motion and an effective date, which I would recommend at 12:01 a.m. tomorrow. So it goes right into effect. You just need a motion and a second if you approve what you have in front of you.
Nicole, this is Roger.
Yes.
On number 15, define what a town partner is. Who would be a town partner?
That would be someone we have an MOU with that we discussed last week or last meeting. So like if we decide we want Rugby Middle School to be a partner, we would have a memorandum of understanding that names them a partner. So that would be completely up to town council of who that partner would be to authorize us to sign an MOU with that group.
Can't we name that something else? Because is that, if I think of a town partner, I would think of Flavor First that donated 25% of the money for the field. And is that you talk about rugby, they're not donating anything. So maybe if we can come up with a different word than town partner.
I'm open to suggestions if we want to label them something different.
Why don't we just say MOU holders?
Sue, does that mess us up as far as adopting the ordinance?
They can adopt it with the change and then we'll have to get it signed later by Shay. Unless I can manage to fit it in without switching pages.
Do what now, Sue? Say it again, please.
You can adopt it with that change. Bottom line.
We don't have to have another reading of it.
Correct.
If we make that change.
What about if we just strike that part, the town partners out of it, and I'd be willing to go ahead and make a motion to approve this.
I have another question before you make a motion. I have a question for you on that. So this is Randy. So we're still on number 15. So the town partners are the MOU holders or whatever we call it. So Nicole, they're going to have priority over all other rentals. Are we going to put a limit on how much one entity is going to be able to dictate time on the field?
We talked about this a little bit last meeting, and I would hope, just like we do with soccer and everything else, is we know we want to leave open use for the residents, that they're not dictating time. And so I would hope, between me and whoever the leader of the other organization would be, could come up with that agreement, because I'm not going to let them take over our field, essentially. So that we would just come up with an agreement on what that priority use looks like. I mean, that's not going to let them have any use anytime they'd want it. If I have scheduled open use, then that they don't get priority over our use, even if that use is open use.
Nicole, this is Roger again. I mentioned this at the last meeting, have you thought any more about when this open use will be? So I've made a suggestion, and it was just thinking out loud, that Monday and Tuesday is rugby, Wednesday, Thursday, somebody else. Is that what I'm after is so the Mills River residents know when open use is. So is that they know not to come down here on Monday because rugby may be using the field. Have you thought any more about that?
Yes, and we did discuss that. And my hope would be that we do plan on having a calendar online that people can view. And we talked about potentially posting. My concern is when you do a specific date. So say we pick Wednesdays and we designate that as open use. If you go to church on Wednesday, you're never going to be able to use that open field. And if we leave it more general and open, I can look at my week and say, oh, you know what, I just can't take any more reservations this week. We've not left enough open time. that's going to leave it a little more flexible. So if you're not able to come on Wednesday's open play or Saturday open play, there's going to be weeks where you have a Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, and that's what we do for soccer and our other fields. And I don't foresee it being a problem doing that for baseball as well.
That's what I was going to ask, is how you handle the other. I mean, this isn't the first time you're having to do reservations or open use. So I was
Right.
asking how you handle the other fields.
I don't want is that on the multi-use field, it's kind of an open-ended thing. People can come and use it wherever they want to use it. Same way with the tennis courts. Same way with the basketball court. So I don't want, Brian Caskey made a point about bringing his daughter down here, hitting the ball. I don't want him to have to go online and schedule a day to bring his daughter down here to hit the ball. I don't think that that's right. Is that what I would like to see is that if we're going to let rugby do it, or the traveling ball team, whatever, is that we have set days for rugby. We have set days for the traveling ball team. And the majority of those days, rest of the week, should be open, and they should not have to schedule an appointment online. Is that they ought to be able to come down here and have a pickup ball game.
Well, the public would not schedule an appointment online. We would post when it is, like we do our picnic shelters, for example. Our picnic shelters are available first come, first serve. The baseball field would be available first come, first serve. If someone reserves it, we would have that schedule online so people could always check it. The baseball field will be open, again, unless we are using it for a program, which right now we don't have any of our own programs. Someone we have an MOU with is using it based on the schedule we all agree upon, or someone has reserved it, but it is at my discretion to decide how many we have, just like soccer. And, you know, I have managed the soccer fields pretty well for the last 2 years where they are not overused, that we have plenty of time for open use. And I think that's what will happen with baseball. So I mean, we certainly can, if that is the desire of council, to dictate certain days and times that we know is going to be open, but it will be open use the vast majority of the time, because you're only going to get rentals at 5 o'clock in the evening. I think it's important we leave a couple nights a week open, because that's when other people are going to come use it too. But daytimes, people can come use it. Saturdays during the day, if it's not reserved. The more restrictions we put on it, the more it binds ourselves to doing other things. And that, you know, staff, I think, is pretty capable of being able to schedule the field without over scheduling.
Well, is that I appreciate what you said, is that you made a comment just right then, said that the vast majority of the time would be open use. Is that correct?
Yes, yeah. As I said, if it's not reserved, unless weather permits it from being open, basically we don't want people on it because they're going to tear it up because it just rained 2 inches. Or it's been previously reserved, just like we do our soccer fields, just like we do the picnic shelters. It's open for public use. It is first come, first serve, open to the public.
So is that, I hate to beat this horse, but is that what you just said right then? You said it would be open use unless it's reserved.
Correct.
Is that what you said?
Yes. Just like the
Okay.
picnic shelter and just like soccer fields.
Okay, so if Brian Caskey wants to bring his daughter down here, so he's going to have to look at the calendar online to see if it's reserved or not. Is that fair?
That's fair. Again, just like our picnic shelter, we have an online calendar. People
No,
can
no,
look.
no, is that, we're not talking about the picnic shelter. We're talking about the baseball field. Is that, I don't agree with Brian. I keep using you, Brian. Is that I don't think that it's right for Brian Caskey or Roger Snyder or any other citizen of Mills River to have to look online to see if the baseball field is open for use. And if it's already reserved, then they're just out of luck. So let's say that that's on Wednesday. So Roger or Brian looks online Thursday. Oh, sorry, it's already reserved. That's the point I'm getting at is this, is that we need to set aside certain days I keep using Monday, is that Monday is tied up. The Mills River people know Monday, you can't come there and use the baseball field. I'm fine with that. Tuesday, the baseball field's tied up. Sorry, I'm okay with that. But at some point in time, I don't need to go online because I want to bring my son down here to practice ball. But I've got to look online, I've got to register it, and so forth. That's not what I consider an open slot. I have to look to see if it's reserved.
Isn't that what you would do for the soccer field, though? I mean, I don't want to treat the baseball field any differently than the other things that people reserve.
Yes, Shay, that is my point. We don't take reservations for the tennis courts. We don't take reservations for the basketball court. I can understand the baseball field a little bit, as long as it's leaning towards the Mills River residents. Why are we even talking about like the picnic shed? That has nothing to do with this.
I was just trying to make a comparison to policies we already have in place and procedures we already have in place.
It's just the same park
As I
related.
said, it is up to town council. If you all want to designate days, we will obviously do that. You know, I'm here to do what you all ask me to do. So I don't know what more I can give you there.
Roger, I do understand what you're saying. And to be honest with you, if Allison and I were going to come down here and hit balls for an hour. No, it's fine. It's a good example. So it's fine because we will use it. And I look forward to using it. But I probably would not go online and check the schedule. I myself, and I know that other people would. I mean, that's a matter of convenience. It'd be nice to know people can log in and see, okay, is there a planned activity at the park during this time? I'd probably just drive over here and check to make sure nobody else is using the field, and or that my wanting to use the field didn't conflict with one of rugby's 5 planned baseball games. Because Nicole, wasn't that what they told us last time that they were planning on using?
Yes. Yeah, 5
Okay.
baseball games, and then I think they were interested in some practice days.
The 5 ball games and some practice days. Okay.
And even practices are not all, it's not going to shut down the field the entire evening. They're going to be done by 5:30. So then, and most people aren't off work for other things until after that.
And-
Yeah, but it's going to start getting dark at
Mhm.
6.
Right.
So is that, Brian, back to your comment, is that what Nicole is telling me is that before you come over here to look, you need to look online, see if it's reserved. And if it's reserved, then you don't even need to come over here.
Well, that would
That's the
save me,
problem I have.
that saved me a trip though.
Well,
honest-
yes,
To be honest with you.
but at the end of the day, we also need to remember who paid for this. Rugby is not paying us 1 penny.
But
Is that
they're also those kids and their parents are taxpayers in Mills River who pay taxes.
not all of them?
Not all of them, but a lot of them are.
That's right.
But a lot of people use this dog park who aren't paying a penny of taxes, or the soccer field, or
That's
the
right.
basketball court.
Is that, I
So
agree
we
with you.
can't single out one thing and not make it the same as all the other parts of the park, all the other amenities.
I agree with you. Now, is that the problem that I see is that you may have a church group. I'm going to pick on them. You may have a church group from Balfour that may want to come over here on Sunday and have a pickup ball game. That's fine. But they know that the field is open on Sunday. And is that, I just have, first of all, is that, yes, some of the rugby people pay taxes. Not all of them, but some of them do. Because it comes from Etowah, Mills River, Fletcher, and Mountain Home. So, let's say a fourth of them may be Mills River residents. Just so is that I want to make sure that the Mills River residents have an opportunity to use the baseball field the majority of the time.
Nicole, this is Randy. In your determination, or what do you think, I'm just asking for your opinion now, what days of the week would the public use the ball field in open use? Would it be like Friday, Saturday, and Sunday mostly, you think, or what?
I don't think there's any way to predict that.
It's a good question. It's all times because it's, again, this isn't your organized, you're not talking about a group of people that's more than likely going to want to come over. It's more your
Right.
individuals, like, Brian Caskey and his daughter wants to come over, hit some balls, might be a couple of friends just picking up games. And I think that's part of the reason why I would not like to designate certain days, because then you exclude certain people if they have Bible study on Tuesdays and they have karate practice. If you make it so consistent, you're excluding a certain group of people that aren't available those days. And then they when they come to use it, they always feel like, well, I'm never able to use it. And you'll start getting that complaint as well. So as I said, neither answer is wrong. We just make sure we schedule it less and have plenty of time for open use. I mean, we could designate a certain number of hours per week, not designate what those hours are per se, but just know once we hit that limit of reservations, okay, we can only reserve it 6 hours a week. If it's reserved for 6 hours and we hit our limit, we don't take any more reservations. I think that's a possibility. Or we can, go the way Roger goes. I know in Fletcher, that is what they did. They did Wednesdays and Sundays, and we got so many complaints from people because they felt like they could never use it because they weren't available those days. Did people use it those days? Absolutely. But we also got a lot of people frustrated because they couldn't use it on Mondays, Tuesdays, and Thursdays and Fridays.
And our shelter rentals, the majority of those rentals are probably on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. Is that
Yes,
right?
That is
Okay.
correct.
So I would think that if somebody rents the shelter for a birthday party and they wanted to play a game, probably Friday, Saturday, and Sunday would probably work for those groups that might want to just have a pickup game.
Yes,
which
I would
would
think
be-
just like general park use, baseball field use, Saturdays and Sundays, Friday, Saturday, and Sundays are going to be your highest use. And that goes for everything in the park.
And do you have a policy in place, like if somebody shows up and nobody has the ball field reserved on Saturday from, 8 in the morning until 1 o'clock, do you have a policy in place that a group can only be on the field for a certain period of time? Like if a baseball team came down here and practiced on an open day, whenever they knew the open day was going to happen or the open hours were going to happen, and they showed up and stayed on the field for 5 hours, is there a policy in place to stop
There is
somebody from
not.
using
That's
it
not
like that?
something currently I've listed.
Okay. Would it be beneficial to you if we set a time a certain number of hours in the week that we thought it could be reserved for? Would that help you out, or would that be a hindrance to you?
No, I think that's reasonable. I mean, if your priority is to have more open play than not, I think that's a very reasonable thing to do, is to say it can be reserved for X amount of hours per week. Just, we have to know when it fills up. My concern there would be, you have these travel ball teams, if it's kind of for reservations, first come, first serve, and they want to reserve every Tuesday for the entire spring season. And then a church on, Monday calls me and says, oh, we'd love to play on Saturday. Can we reserve the field? If we've already hit our allotment, that could put me, there's no great answer, So go ahead, Roger. Looks like you're getting ready to say something.
Well, I'll go ahead. This is Brian Kimball. It sounds to me like there's a lot of we don't know what we don't know. So maybe, I don't think this affects the rules, but moving forward in the future, when we start considering use, maybe if we want to enter the partnership with rugby, maybe we limit to rugby the first year so that we can see what the open use is and then see what rugby's use is. And if it balances out, doesn't balance out, then we can make a decision if we want to add more time to open play, or if we want to have, we can take more travel teams, or then that gives us a chance to see what we're really getting into. I think everybody agrees it's always easier to change or be more lenient going forward than it is to tighten the clamp down after you've already started something. So that's my 2 cents.
Nicole, this is Roger again, just kind of expand on what Brian said, taking into consideration what the other Brian and what Randy said, is that, why don't we do this? Is that you made a comment at Fletcher about, what was it, Wednesdays and Sundays?
Sundays, that's what they did at Fletcher.
Okay. Is that this would satisfy me, is that if we had Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday for rugby and other organized teams, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday would be open use. Going on what Brian Kimball just said, is that if we see this not being used on Thursday, then we can expand, or we can cut back on the open use and say Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. Is that I'd just like to see some structure to where I can bring my son down here without having to go online and reserve it for a pickup ball game. So I'm okay with the Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday for rugby, and if we don't have no organized team, traveling team, then they can use it Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. The whole day. I don't care. But is that I think that we need to set the rules so rugby, not picking on rugby, but rugby knows that they can't come Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday.
Nicole, do you remember rugby's game schedule, game nights?
They do not have a schedule yet for the spring season, so I do not know what that would be. But I would imagine I know they don't have Friday. They wouldn't have Friday games and don't have practices, and they don't have weekend games. I would imagine they probably have the occasional Thursday game, though.
I would hate to just make like every, Monday is open and then it rains every Monday or every Sunday evening and we have to close the field. Like, I just think pinning us to like certain days. I trust Nicole to manage the reservations. She has experience. She's been doing just fine. Let her spend the spring season, the summer season, kind of evaluate the use and the need. And then if we have to reevaluate in the next fall, we will.
I think my concern with certain days and then leaving it open like on Thursday, Friday, and Saturday there would be nothing from stopping a team if they knew it was open on Thursday, Friday, and Saturday from coming over here and playing on Saturday from 12 to 4. And there would be no rule in place to stop that from happening. And they would still dictate a prime time of usage for the public.
That's a good point, is that I hadn't thought about that. But you're exactly right, is that if a certain team knew that Saturday was open, then they could be over here at 8 o'clock in the morning. And me and Brian couldn't bring our kids over here to.
So I have no problem with a time limit, 2-hour blocks or whatever, please be courteous and don't keep the field for more than 2 hours. I don't think that's too much to ask, but.
Does
I
that
think
also,
even a time hour block is probably not even because even a time hour, and this is a very good point, Randy. And I agree, we will probably have problems, like particularly travel ball teams. If they know we have open field, first come, first serve, they will probably have someone camp out and come stake out the field. So I think that's a very valid point. But I think maybe during open play, during non-reservation use, that there's no organized teams. And then that doesn't preclude, if somebody doesn't want to play a pickup game, that might take them 2 hours, 2.5 hours, and we're not kicking them out. But if we have an organized, again, a travel ball team or someone like that, that would preclude them from, just showing up and saying, well, we're practicing, camp out on the field at 2 o'clock and then have their players show up at 4 for practice.
And I guess that would be just a judgment call for the ranger that's on duty that day, right?
Correct.
Whether it was an organized group or just a pickup game.
so if a church come down on Saturday, they had a picnic, they rented the shelter. And so they said, okay, bring your bats and balls and we'll have a pickup ball game. Is that, I can see both sides of the coin limiting them to 2 hours or whatever, and then they have to get off. But is that, I don't know, is that, Nicole, is that, this is a tough one. So is that, do you mind coming up with some scenarios and bringing them back to us?
I mean, we certainly can. I'll be honest with you, we can do scenarios till we're blue in the face and we'll never get a rule that covers all of them. I just need some, I guess, general direction on what kind of use you want to see on the field, what your priorities are.
But let me interrupt there, Nicole, 1 second. So we're talking about two different things here, I think. We have a set of park rules that we need to adopt so that we can kind of put that to bed, and we're talking about field usage. So is it okay if we focus on getting the rules adopted and then when we tackle this field usage point? I think the mayor made a really good point that Nicole does a phenomenal job scheduling things right now. We can all make our best guess about who's going to be using the field and how often, but we're not really going to know until we get a season or two under our belt. So there's a lot of good ideas floating around about limiting it to 2-hour blocks or whatever the case may be. So I don't want to overlook that. I want to make sure that we at least get the rules wrapped up tonight. And if you want to talk about time limits and things of that nature, we can do that. It would be better if we could come back at a later date when we have a little bit more time to digest some of these ideas rather than trying to just force it all out tonight. Does that work for anyone?
I'm okay with the rules, except for number 15. And what it says in the second sentence, reservations will not be allowed in time allotted as open use. So is that, if we can scratch number 15, is that I'm fine with the rules for the time being.
Sue, does scratching a rule make us start over?
No, adding a rule would make you start over. But before we vote, is the rest of council comfortable with this?
I'll make a motion, we adopt the rules as presented with the exception of number 15. Nicole, when do you want them to go into effect?
I don't suspect we'll be opening till spring at this point. So, I mean, it's up to you all. I think we can adopt them now for use because we would have it closed due to weather and condition of the grass. But I guess that's up to Sue and you all on, as long as we have them by March 1st, we definitely need rules in effect.
Do what?
I usually recommend you do it at 12:01 a.m. the following day, unless you want to delay for some reason.
Okay. Sue, will you add that to my motion, 12:01 today,
Tomorrow.
tomorrow, next week, whatever?
I'll second.
All right. My only concern, scratching out 15 totally, is you take out the reservations need to be made no less than 3 business days. I mean, you're just taking out the reservations, kind of any guidelines. That's just the only caution about taking out number 15.
I think what we're saying is if we take it out, then there's no rules to it and it's up to Nicole.
And
to
she can
handle.
determine.
She doesn't have to
Okay.
abide by any set standard.
Okay. All right. So motion and a second. Other discussion?
I second.
Okay. All those,
Are we going to come back to determining usage and open usage? Is that what we're
yes,
agreeing to?
another time. But first we've got to just adopt the rules
Okay.
because they're not part of, the usage is not a part of the rules.
Okay.
Motion and a second. All those in favor?
Ah,
Any opposed? Okay.
That was unanimous, right? Okay.
Unanimous. Okay, so we're coming back to the discussion on usage at a time where Nicole can throw some ideas together. Okay, so moving on to C on the agenda, the lease agreement for the Banner Farm Road property for Mills River Brewery.
Thank you, Mayor. So this item is coming before you tonight in response to the brewery has interest in using the town's property next door to their brewery on Banner Farm Road for parking. They've already been using that in an informal sense. From the town's perspective, this lease really is designed to protect the town from liability associated with the private use of the land for the brewery. There is a stipulation in here that they may use the land. I'm going to use a lay term at their own risk. So if they want to bring in gravel, for example, and fill in parking spaces or whatever, they'd be paying for that, and they wouldn't be able to ask for reimbursement for it. They'd be responsible for mowing the grass on the site for the entire site. And then they also have to stay out of the wetland delineated areas near the back of the property. And all that is referenced in legalese within this document. This is set to run for 1 year and may be extended for 4 more years, one at a time. And then after that time, we'd have to figure out what we want to do. With regards to the recreation master plan and this timing, that's part of the reason we set it out 1 year for the first year, to give the plan an opportunity to be designed and adopted. And then we can think about what we want to do out there. And we would just work with the brewery to give them notice if we decided to build anything out there. So with that, that's all I have as far as background. I did speak with representatives of the brewery. They're comfortable with the terms. The only question they had was under item 3.
That's what I was going to ask.
Either
What's our-
party may terminate the term of this lease anytime by providing the other party blank days notice of termination. So
What's the normal? 10 days, 15 days? 30
I
days?
think if you're going to terminate, at least 30 days, I think would be reasonable. I think 60 would be appropriate in this case, but it's at the council's pleasure. And Mr. soak up with the brewery is not available. He's at his daughter's event right now, but he has offered to answer questions.
I mean, this basically just protects the town if somebody gets hurt over
That's
at the
right.
food truck. Yeah.
Yeah, this requires that they cover liability insurance up to $1 million. And if something should happen on that land, a fender bender or someone twists their ankle, you know, the intent is that the brewery would handle that under their own insurance.
How does this affect us as a town accessing the property or?
It doesn't change our accessibility to it. It's a non-exclusive use of the land. So while they're granted permission to use it, they're not the only ones who can use it.
So if we wanted to have a farmer's market on a Saturday,
Mhm.
we can use it too.
Mhm.
Okay.
I have a quick question. So what happens if Bold Rock wants to have a big event on a Saturday after COVID's whatever, and they need additional parking and they want to park their cars up there? Can they do that?
I'm not an attorney, but parking is what's allowed under this lease. So I would make the assumption that they could park there.
So Bold Rock could park that car. Okay.
Bold Rock could only park there if we granted them permission. The lease is with Mills River Brewery.
So, but we have the authority to grant it.
We could give someone else permission to use.
Mills River Brewery could not object to that.
I got that covered.
Okay.
So this, Roger, on number 1, on page 1, I'd like to strike out on line number 2, and agents, including a food truck. We don't allow food trucks on our property here, so we shouldn't allow them up there. And somewhere, Daniel, somewhere, I'd like to insert the sole use of overflow parking for the brewery. And also, I'd like to insert during normal business hours. And I think that would cover you, wouldn't it, Brian?
Except now the town can't park there either.
Do I?
The way you've worded this, I don't believe that, I'm not a lawyer either, but you've just limited all parking on that property to Mills River Brewery.
Well, yeah, that's who the agreement is with.
Yeah, but the town can't park there either if we do something. Say you want to have a farm market, the farm market can't park there.
The way it's structured right now is the lease is for the purposes of the lessee and its invitees, customers, employees, and we'll strike the agent's portion of that, and food truck and parking upon the town property, excluding the area from the Army Corps engineers restrictions. So I think, Roger, what you're saying is you want parking to be the only use allowed. Is that right?
Is that what I'm after is that Mills River Brewery
Mm-hmm.
parks in their parking lot
Mm-hmm.
during normal business hours.
Mm-hmm.
And then hopefully they'll have too much business and not enough parking.
Right.
And so they have to use our field
Mm-hmm.
as overflow.
Right.
And so you want to tell them what happened the other day?
About the sewer easement?
No, about the trailer.
Sure, I can. There was a distant connection between someone who owned an RV and or travel trailer, I suppose, as it was pulled behind. Between that owner and the brewery, there was a familial connection there, a friendship. I'm not exactly sure of the terms, but anyway, they asked the brewery if they could park the RV there, and the brewery said, "Sure, why not? You know, it's open land. We're not using it right now." I don't think they had any ill will in doing that. The folks who were living there simply needed a place to stay for a couple of nights because their reservations ran out at the campsite they were in and they were on their way out of town. So yes, they, I guess, gave them permission in a sense to use that. But as soon as I asked the brewery about it, they asked them to back up and leave. So it was handled quickly. But I think the point is you want to make sure that doesn't happen, right? They don't park RVs and such out there.
Whenever I went by there Tuesday morning, this is 8:30 in the morning, I saw the travel trailer way up in the cove, up next to the woods. They already had their awning out. They had their lounge chairs out. They was camped out up there. So my phone call was to Daniel. So is it, I'm just trying not to repeat
Yeah.
something like that again.
One question, Daniel, they can't use the wetlands part of that lot. So cannot use the wetlands part of that lot. So refresh my memory where the wetlands part of that lot is. It's in the back. I don't have the map. So, okay. Okay, what if their business grows and grows and they're needing this so I don't see anything in here to keep them from putting gravel over the whole lot except the wetlands part.
Mhm.
So technically that could happen, right?
Yes, I believe that's true.
Is that something we want to do?
I wouldn't want them to asphalt it, but we could undo the gravel. Because on the other hand, if you leave it grass, it could turn into a big old rutted, muddy mud hole. You know, we have a wet summer.
Personally, is that I don't have a problem them buying the gravel and putting it down because that might help us down the road.
Yeah.
Is that, you're right, is that, I don't want to get into the wetlands issue.
May I suggest that you decide exactly what you want, and I'll take it back to our attorney to word it.
I think that's a good idea. So so what I've gathered is the brewery can only have its customers park there when they're coming to the brewery. You want it to be used exclusively for parking and no food trucks. And there was one other item that was,
Overflow parking,
yes, overflow parking.
Their secondary parking area,
Mhm.
yes. Maybe that's a better word, secondary.
not their
And,
primary.
it was a 60-day termination notice. Is that correct? That's what.
And it's during normal business hours.
How do you want to define that in terms of 8 to 5 or the brewery's
Well,
hours?
Well, is that I had a hard time with the word normal.
Mm-hmm.
These days and times,
That's true.
is that nothing is normal.
That's a very good point.
Is that what might be normal today won't be normal next week.
Mm-hmm.
So, so how do you word that?
Yeah. So from my experience, the brewery needs that parking basically while they're open. They do very good business out there. I don't know their hours of operation, but I know it extends into the evening to a certain extent. So if you're looking for some boundaries, I would recommend that it follow the brewery's schedule.
So my only but to that, and I hate to play devil's advocate, is what if somebody goes there, parks, drinks too much, and can't drive their car home, and they have to leave their car over there at night? Are we going to say, well, that's an unauthorized use because it's? I mean, I understand being reasonable,
Yeah.
but I don't want to create us a problem where we say that and then, again, because it's getting along with everyone else.
Mm-hmm.
Then is Bold Rock going to say, well, they violated the lease because?
Mm-hmm.
Not that they would, but they could. I mean, that's what I'm trying to.
Yeah, and again, that's a scenario that could happen. And if it does happen, we'll take a reasonable approach to it. And if it happens one time every 6 months, I mean, that's not something I'm even going to deal with. If it happens every night, that's a different story.
Wouldn't that become the brewery's problem and not ours?
Yes, in essence, it would fall back on them if they're in violation of the lease. Yes.
I mean, I'm not trying to beat them over the head.
Yeah.
It's just,
But
Yeah, I
at the
think-
same time, if someone's too drunk, has had too much that they shouldn't get in a car, they shouldn't get in a car, and we should appreciate that they want to park
Right.
overnight.
Yeah.
Jim, right? I mean,
I
that's
think
the safer.
one of the things that might solve the language problem, and to Roger's point, the term overflow parking, I think is very useful to us because that implies that the other lot is full. So if the other lot is not full and there are cars parked over there, then that's unusual and that's not what's covered in the lease. So I think the use of that term could really assist us as we try to craft this a little bit further.
Okay, so we're gonna define it specifically as overflow parking, no food trucks, right? That's it. Okay,
What about their food truck? Because doesn't it park there now?
it does park there now, yeah. So,
Or not their primary food truck that they use. It's not theirs, but
yeah, that the other food truck there that does park there, I guess that's a good point. There's a distinction between, is it okay if they just park it there? Or do you not want them vending? Which one is that we're not supportive of?
If they have a spare food truck,
Mm-hmm,
then they can use one of their parking places.
okay,
Is that it should be on their parking thing anyway. And then they can use our parking lot as overflow.
okay.
So for me, because I'm going back to the attorney with this, their regular food truck can park there, but an additional food truck cannot? A spare
No.
truck? I'm not understanding.
Is that they have, I think, 2 food trucks now that they regularly use. And then they have a spare
Mhm,
that they park on our property.
mhm.
Okay. Is that they will have to move that spare food truck, Sue, to their property because is that in the changes, food trucks are not allowed.
That's what I wanted to be clear on. You were referring to a spare truck. No food trucks of any kind allowed per the lease.
Yes. A motion.
well,
No.
there's nothing. We're just sitting on it.
Yes, I'm sorry. You don't need a motion. I think with council's agreement, if council's in agreement, Sue will go back to the attorney and make these changes, and then we can bring it back to you. Or let's just do that. Let's just do that.
Okay, so
So
move,
no action necessary.
no action. Yeah. Moving on to the visioning for fiscal year 2021, 2022, setting a date for that.
Hard to believe it's next year already. Thank you. So traditionally your visioning session is the last week of the month in January. Last year we had it nearly 2 full days. That's a lot to take in. This year I think we have a lot of projects. We're going to try to keep it relatively, I'll say shorter than last year anyway. We're looking at January 28th from 9 to 4 p.m. The morning would be your typical updates from staff and other agencies like Partnership, AgHC, and so forth. And the afternoon would be dedicated to reviewing the plans that we're working on, the comprehensive plan as well as the recreation plan. And then on Friday morning from 9 to noon would be likely going to be follow-up discussion from both of those discussions the previous day. And so the Friday is really just as needed. We don't have to meet that day if we wrap everything up on the 28th. But I think with regards to the open meetings law compliance, what we need to do, Sue, please jump in here, is modify your schedule for the 28th. That is your normal meeting date. We would just be meeting earlier in the day and then recessing to the next day if necessary. Did I say that right, Sue?
Yes, you did.
All right.
And if we're still in restrictions, we still have to be spaced and then limit, kind of stagger our usual presentations, which they usually are pretty well staggered, but sometimes they end up on top of each other.
Yeah, we would have to still take that into consideration, assuming it's still an issue.
All right, motion to change our regular meeting time to beginning at 9 a.m. on the 28th.
Yes, please.
Was that a motion?
That was a motion. So moved.
Okay, so I'll second Shay's motion, Brian Kimball.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Is that it on that?
Yes.
We're good.
thank you.
Okay. So moving to item E, the planning board vacancy. So it's not just planning board. We also still have vacancies for Board of Adjustment as well, right?
We do have a vacancy on the Board of Adjustment. Yes, that's
The
correct.
planning board is the newest.
That's right. The board chair resigned at the last meeting at the beginning of the month. He had some professional obligations that were going to take him out of town quite a bit.
Wasn't he one of the ones that was actually out of town limits anyway?
As of April, he was going to be disqualified, yes. Just for your information, there've been a couple of other people who are interested, but they have not turned in applications yet. You can do with that what you want.
So what we're looking for tonight, if the council is so inclined to make an appointment, is whoever is appointed would continue to fill out the rest of the existing term, which is set to expire in April. And then we would actually go ahead and now decide if we wanted to extend that for 2 years, which would be the normal term of that position. And so you'd be looking to appoint a person to the board. The board's meeting next week, and then they would decide amongst themselves how they want to arrange the chair and vice chair, considering the fact that the chair just resigned.
I think for me, I've looked at the applications and being on the planning board for the past 9 years. One of the persons that applied, I was really impressed with, just because of their background with civil engineering and traffic, and it could have been more timely with Anthony coming here and speaking about that, and that's a good experience to have on the planning board. So, I mean, based upon what I've seen, I think I'd like to make a motion that we appoint Jeff Moore to that open slot, and that we to fulfill the remaining term, and then we extend it to was it 2023? Yeah. Okay.
One of the, looking at the list that Sue gave us that was very helpful, and it shows us the districts that are represented by each committee. We're short in District 1. And so I have the intention tonight of nominating Lonnie Oliver, who lives in District 1. I know Lonnie and his wife, Sandra. Lonnie currently is on our finance committee, does a great job. And Lonnie has a lot of good experience. I like Jeff Moore's application as well. I would love to see him on the Board of Adjustments. So that was my thought coming into the meeting. Sure. Was Lonnie for planning and Jeff for Board of Adjustments. So.
And we lose a spot on the finance committee.
And that again is up to council. There is a precedent for serving on more than one committee. I did not ask Mr. Oliver what his preference was.
But if Lonnie were voted on to the planning board, each district would be equally represented.
So Brad, is this guy going to serve on both committees?
Sue just said she didn't
I have
ask.
not talked to him about that. But he was very interested in planning, and that fits more into his background. So, I mean, he approached me, we talked about it. He brought his application over that day.
There's a lot of different things we could base on, because if you go by dates, who was interested or who had an application on file first, that's somebody totally different. So we got to decide which criteria we want to focus on.
Yeah, I'm mostly interested in seeing equal representation across the town.
Do we know what the percentages are? Is like how many people live in each district? I mean, like 50% of the people, or 60%, or 30%? Is 35% of the people live in Mills River or District 2, or does?
We can figure that out. I don't know off the top of my head.
I mean, that would be my thing. If 70% of the people lived in one district, then saying that we're going to separate it by district wouldn't make. That's my only concern. I mean,
Brian, just FYI, those districts were reviewed with the last census, and they were fairly equivalent in number of population in each district. That's something that once the final census figures are released, that we would review again.
thank you. I knew you'd have the answer. Somebody would have it.
That's why she was clerk of the year.
Yeah. I really think that having the civil engineering and the traffic engineering coming from the planning board and being there for 9 years, that's a huge
Huge part of
benefit.
it.
That's a huge part of that. And that is a huge benefit to have that knowledge on that board. And it's free. I mean, that's my point. And I understand the equality thing and, but we've got other committees that are I think the finance committee, like 5 of them or 4 or 3 of them are out of District 1. So that one's the other way. So
I just think planning is so important. I mean, you guys know that. You've been on the planning board. It's really good to have a wealth of experience. And I do, I like Jeff's experience, but I don't want to see the town get out of balance. Roger and I talked about it a little bit. And I agree with what he said, that it's very important that we have that kind of balance or attempt to have that kind of balance. Now, with something like finance committee, you're looking for a very specific and narrow set of expertise. Where with planning, I think you're looking for a more broad. And Lonnie certainly has the kind of experience. He's worked in county government. He understands the interactions between the various municipal organizations, but also planning organizations and things like that. So I think he's a perfect candidate. I also know he shows up, and that's my big thing.
me and you're going to battle this one out. So I think for me, it also comes back to length of residency. And Jeff has 46 years of residency in the town of Mills River, and versus Lonnie, and I'm not, picking on him or anything like that. His length of residency is 4 years, and that's important, and it's important to have a mix. But obviously, people continue to move to Mills River because we're doing something right. So I think that having that history of where we came from is very important. And I think you made a motion and I made a motion, right? So we both have a motion, so somebody's got to pick which one.
On either one.
Y'all got a second one of them.
Was Mr. Keskey's actually a motion?
Your microphone is off, Brian.
You see, I will make that a motion that we nominate Lonnie Smith to the planning board.
So now we have 2 motions on the floor, and you'll have to dispense with Mr. Kimball's before you can.
Yeah, neither has a second.
Right.
Randy, you're thinking a lot.
Oh, I think I'm really struggling with this because I think, I know Mr. Oliver, I've talked to him quite a bit, and I know Jeff lived here, was born here and everything. And both of them are very qualified and have a lot of experience. But I have to fall in with Brian Kimball on this, that the DOT experience and stuff like that is going to be very valuable on the planning board. So I will second Brian Kimball's motion that we nominate Jeff Moore for the planning board.
Okay, so one at a time. We have a motion and a second for Jeff Moore for the planning board vacancy. So all those in favor of Jeff Moore, say aye. It's 3 opposed. Brian. Okay, so
I saw 3 for and 1 opposed.
correct.
So someone didn't vote.
Me.
Okay.
Alexa.
Unfortunately, you have to vote.
Okay, Jeff Moore.
Okay.
So 4 to 1. So we still have Mr. Oliver's expertise on finance committee. Were any of these or any of the new ones that you've received, Sue, interested in the Board of Adjustment?
Jeff Moore.
I definitely think you shouldn't serve on both planning and Board of Adjustment. That will be too much of a conflict. Yeah. So
I would agree with you. I think it's okay on some boards, but I don't think this is the one.
Okay.
Or these are the 2.
okay, so that's it for the agenda. Now to staff updates. Do you have anything for us, Sue?
No, I don't have anything further. Just that planning board.
You
Oh,
sound
except
defeated.
that now I have an opening on the Board of Adjustment. Still, so
Yep.
I will contact these other people, the other planning board applicants, and see if they would be willing to go to the Board of Adjustment.
I'm afraid we've scared off a lot of people for board adjustment right now, honestly. Arlie, do you have a report from tax collector? You're muted.
Just that we have the November report. The collection percentage was 64.66% compared to 60.59% last year. And actually in 2018, it was 54 point something percent. So we keep on, people are paying earlier. We're getting more people paying. The first 2 weeks in December are ahead of the first 2 weeks last year. So everything's looking really good for another good year. Hopefully we'll have a good end of the month and more people will pay and not be delinquent than last year. That's all I got. Unless you have any questions.
Tax questions? No. All right, thanks, Arlie.
You're welcome.
Nicole, do you have anything else from the Parks and Rec?
Just, I'm sure you all have heard about our Santa tour happening this weekend. We're really excited. The big man from up north is coming down to Mills River this weekend. So I just want to give a big shout out to the fire department and Jim over with the Henderson County Sheriff's Department for working with us on this. We have a ton of positive feedback and a ton of people excited about this weekend. So anybody watching at home, if you're interested, if you go to millsriver.org/Santa, and you can see your route and of when he might come to your house, come by your house. We also have some Santa stops set up at some churches and businesses where if we don't pass your house, you can go see him pass by there. And really cool is on that same website, you'll be able to actually track him live of where he is in town. So that way, you know when to run outside to give him a big wave and get a candy cane. So we're really excited about that. And yeah, so hopefully y'all will see him this weekend.
Okay, and Daniel / audiovisual technician. Any reports from town manager?
Yeah, just a couple of quick things. First of all, I want to thank Nicole and Jim and Rick for jumping on this Santa tour. This was an idea that came up about 3 weeks ago. So we've not had a lot of time to prepare for it, but Nicole thought of it given the year that 2020 has been. It's been an interesting year to say the least. And we were looking for a way to just spread some cheer and do something fun for the community. And the fire department didn't hesitate when we asked for their help, or to the sheriff's office. So a lot of thanks goes out to all those folks for making this happen. And it will be fun. We're still looking for candy cane people. So if you want to be an elf,
You got the
come
beard,
talk to-
Roger.
Come talk to Nicole.
You got the beard. You'll be an elf.
So that's on the Santa project. Solar power, I just want to give you a quick little tidbit. Last year at the same time, well, let me just put it this way. Year over year, our power consumption for this building is down 70%. I'm sure part of that is just seasonal changes in the weather, and perhaps it was cooler or warmer this year than it was last year. But I think a big part of that goes to the solar power generated from the panels in the building. So that's a big reduction, which is really exciting to see on paper. We know about it in theory, but it's cool to see the results in the bills. A couple other updates. The comprehensive plan is under serious review right now by the steering committee. We just sent out a revised version of that yesterday to the committee, and we will be giving a presentation on that to the planning board next week. And following that, we'll give them the text of the document so that they'll have opportunity to review it. We are planning to present it to this board on January 14th, I believe, is your next meeting. So it'll be have gone through a couple different reviews by a couple different committees and a lot of different people by the time it gets to you guys. So I'm very proud of that plan. I think we've done a lot of good work on it. I'm not ashamed to compliment everybody on that because it's been very good work. A lot of work has gone into it. Brian and Shay are your representatives on the steering committee. I think they would say the same thing. It's been a really great project. And I know we don't typically respond to public comment, but I just wanted to give you a quick highlight on that Schoolhouse Road project. This is something that real estate companies do when they have a piece of land. They'll put the big sign up, say coming soon. As you've seen in the past, especially lately with the Lowe's Distribution Center. That's kind of a stock image that they use. It's not always what you're going to see when the project is built. And so their first stop is not usually with the town. Unfortunately, they just go out to market. So we have not seen any formal plans for that. They've not submitted anything. They've not asked for anything, which is the same case that we had when Lowe's was looking at the property. So for what it's worth, I just want to put that out there those conversations haven't started yet, which is normal. They don't typically have those conversations early on until they have an end user in mind. And so the site plan that they publicized for the marketing materials may or may not be what actually gets submitted as far as plan review for the town. And with that, I'm going to reserve any more comments unless you have any questions for me.
That property was owned by Bold Rock.
I'm sorry.
Was that property owned by, was it still the
I can't remember the
the
family's name.
Hefners? Yeah. Was it still Hefner's?
No,
Okay.
Roger, we can't hear you.
Sorry, is that I don't know who owns that. The only thing that I know is that Jimmy Cowan has cut the hay off of it for
Last few years.
3 or 4 years.
Yeah.
I
So-
believe it was purchased by Preston Johnson when all of the Bold Rock property and that was all purchased together.
Well, you're right, Sue, is that there was Pete and the other guy. But I think that they sold out to Bold Rock. But the old Hefner house and the property that Hill was talking about and the property where this development's going is that I don't think that was part of the Bold Rock.
No,
Is that-
Bold Rock did not purchase that.
So I assume it,
Looked it up on the GIS, and according to the Henderson County GIS, it says Johnston, Preston, Ellison, Maxwell is who the property is listed to.
I think it's Pete.
So since the topic of traffic has come up several times, any word or any movement on any projects or still everything's on hold?
Not any positive movement.
Nothing, no.
No.
Just so nothing to address any of the, concerns that we've heard.
No, well, I mean, I don't know the history of that intersection like the gentleman did who spoke earlier. So.
Well, I complained about that to DOT twice about the visibility because I almost got hit one day and
Yeah.
I'd seen at least 3 other times people running the 4-way, the 191,
Yeah.
the Banner Farm Road going towards Etowah. Just
Mhm.
people didn't see it. And I think the
Mhm.
stop sign was in a place that you really didn't notice it,
Mhm.
but I almost got hit. And they did, I think, make some adjustments with the sight line, but
Well, it's one of the things too that, unfortunately this 191 project has gotten pushed back significantly. But when we had them come in and we sat down and we negotiated with them, we negotiated hard. A lot of the things that we put in there were things like sound buffering. We wanted them to level that road out and take some of the rises out of it. And so it's unfortunate that, we haven't seen that project move forward because there are a lot of safety aspects involved with
so
the
there's no like
reconstruction.
emergency request we can ask. No.
No,
If
this
something
one,
is a huge project and
luckily, this one will happen first. 191 is going to happen first. And then significantly delayed behind that will be the 280 improvements. And what they'll do is they're going to realign the intersections to make those safer, such as the one at Jeffress Road that was mentioned a moment ago. Just to make that one a lot safer. And so that, we don't have people diving into that middle turn lane and taking their lives in their hands when
We're
they do
still
that.
several years out on all that, right?
It's been moved further back. I want to say that one is at 2026,
So we have
maybe.
6 more years of complaints that
Yes,
we can't actually do
precisely.
anything about.
But, you know, and I think Anthony raised some valid points. You know, we've got tractor and trailers using a road that was not designed for tractor and trailers, and they're going to put, if the, you know, the artist drawing turns out to be anything like what they build over there, you know, quite a few loading docks with more tractor and trailers. I mean, this is something that we seriously
When it
need to
goes through technical
consider.
review, is that something you all can, the technical review can require is, you know, their egress?
I could, well,
Is that something we have to have a policy or a ordinance for?
it's gonna rely upon what the DOT says. I mean, because it's their road, it's their standards that they have to meet. What they're proposing, assuming it's an industrial user, is allowed by right. So there's no real condition-making authority that the town has, other than whatever the state wants them to do. I did ask the state about the Banner Farm 191 intersection before Lowe's was permitted. I asked, you know, they need to do a TIA. What do they need to do about, you know, that turn radii and all that? And basically the response I got was they're going to have to be patient when they try to make turns out of Banner Farm on the 191.
And, you know, Anthony mentioned rezoning, but they're already,
We can't just rate.
you can't rezone something that they already have a vested interest in.
If they didn't
Yeah.
ask for a rezoning.
The town can rezone property as it sees fit. They have not submitted anything to the town giving them vested rights. If they were to, for example, if they were to come in tomorrow with a full set of development plans that were designed according to the current standards, and those were under review, they paid the review fee, the town could, in theory, rezone that property, but the applicant had already submitted plans under the code that was present at the time, so that they'd have the option to comply with the new standards or the current standards.
From what I understand is that once they submit an application,
Mhm.
then it becomes vested rights.
Yes, that's the general rule. I would ask your attorney if she was present, but I think in addition to just the plans, they need to have shown some legitimate effort. And I think these people would. I've seen plans in the past where people just submit it to say, here's my plan, I'm not grandfathered, right? They've not put any real work or investment in that. They have to make a significant investment into the project. But generally speaking, yes, once the plan is in, they would have their rights.
I don't think that they'll be using Banner Farm Road because unless they want to move that sewer line and that water line, it's on the upper end of that property. So I'm thinking is that they'll have to build down towards the old White House
Makes
back
more sense to go right.
along the farm road there.
Is there anything else that was asked in public comment that?
I do.
Council comments? Just one other thing, Daniel, is that would it be possible, and I'm gonna use this Mills River Brewery
Mhm.
agreement, is that as soon as you get that, could you email that to us? And so it gives us time to look over it instead of the Monday
Mm-hmm.
thing.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was also thinking is that when Nicole gets her baseball agreement,
Mm-hmm.
kind of get that to us.
Yeah.
Is that I don't expect it all the time, but
Yeah.
The more time that whenever the staff gets done with it,
Mm-hmm.
maybe get it to us to where we'll have more time to
Yeah.
to look at it.
We'll get you everything we can as soon as we can. Just bear in mind that when you see things in advance like that, you can't really be discussing it with one another. It's really just so you individually are familiar with it. You can't be making decisions via email or anything like that. That's in violation of the open meetings rules.
Well, I was just thinking is that, I mean, you had a conversation
Mm-hmm.
and I think it was what, Friday of last week or something?
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's kind of thing
Yeah,
that I'm thinking about.
sure. Yeah, that makes sense. I did have one other thing, if I can, before we do the roundtable. I just want to give you kind of regarding public comment. The planning board next week on their agenda is going to review a noise ordinance, food truck standards, architectural standards, and erosion control stuff, in addition to the 160D ordinance changes and the comprehensive plan. So they have a full agenda, and they'll continue that work at their next meeting in January. They agreed to meet twice a month until the comprehensive plan and at least these ordinance changes are made, which I think is a smart thing to do considering the work that they have ahead of them.
I just have one more quick question. No, I'll be quiet. Has the town ever rezoned a piece of property without the property owner asking for it before?
I can't answer that question. Sue might be able to, but I want to.
When the Norton property got rezoned, we rezoned the town's property at the same time and approached other property owners to see if they wanted to be included. But we never just outright gone to someone and said, we're going to rezone you. There was another time also on Jeffress Road when a couple of property owners wanted to be in open use rather than, I don't remember, it might have been, I don't remember what they were going to be zoned. We were doing our first map. And so we approached some others in the same area to make it a significant area.
To answer your question, Sue, correct me if I'm wrong, but we rezoned the Lowe's property, the town's property, Tad Wright's property, Northen's property, and where this new thing is going.
It was
But
with the property
But
owners.
they wanted it.
Yes.
Yes, that's what I asked.
He said we didn't do it involuntarily.
Yes.
Yeah.
Is that we just couldn't come in and rezone the town property because that'd be considered spot zoning.
It's not really spot zoning when you rezone without someone's permission, but I'm not sure it's legal.
I just wanted to respond to Mr. Hill's comments very quickly as far as the amount of traffic going down Schoolhouse Road. And I think we've done quite a bit already to try to keep traffic off of Schoolhouse Road. Winding back a couple of years, and I won't go through everything that happened, but the DOT approached Town of Mills River with a plan to widen 191, and it was a monstrous project. It was an extremely wide footprint that they approached us with. And so we took some actions that got their attention. And what was obvious about their design was that they were designing these enormous bulb outs for tractor trailers to use to turn around. So in other words, if a truck was going to come out of Van Wingerden over here, they would have to turn right, go out here to one of these bulb outs where they could turn around and go back out here to 280. So that was the reason why we forced them to redesign 191, was because we saw immediately that traffic was not going to be coming out and using those bulb outs to turn around and come. They were just going to cut down Schoolhouse Road and get to 280 that way. So we really have been mindful of the amount of traffic on Schoolhouse, and we're trying to remain mindful going forward. And so I think his advice was good, but it did just want to mention that it's been in the back of our minds for at least the last few years. So, thank you.
Our hands are kind of tied. With regards to the rumble strips, I've heard my kids complain. You're sitting in class and you're because it echoes against the school. Other council comments? We all commented out. All right, is there a motion to adjourn?
Wait, one thing, Shay, if you don't mind, and thank you, Orly, for pointing this out. We have left a motion on the floor. Back on the appointments, technically, I mean, Brian Kimball made a motion, and then Brian Caskey made a motion. We should have dealt with the first one before we did the other one, but we ended up voting on the first one after the second was made. But the second one is hanging out there. So it
Second one
needs-
never had a second. Doesn't it die without a second?
I withdraw my motion, Sue.
Thank you. I'll just record it as withdrawn.
All right, Roger made a motion to adjourn. Seconded by Brian and Randy. All those in favor? Everyone have a Merry Christmas. Sorry we can't have a holiday gathering. I'm gonna start doing all my grocery shopping at like 10 o'clock. I'll show you.